Hello and welcome. My name is Thomas Kevin Dolan. I'm the writer and author of Little Fag, A Journey of Self-Acceptance and Healing. And today I will read chapter 14 entitled, My Every Move Was Watched. And it's on page 90 of my memoir. I have another memory of being watched by someone as I was growing up. In the morning, I'd wake and sense a presence. It often felt like someone had just left my room. During the day, in the late afternoons and evenings. Even on the rare occasion when I didn't have to share bathwater with 4 other siblings, I felt somebody watching me. It scared me. I was neither able to speak nor speak up. What I braved. Foreboding wasn't a word I ever understood. Yet when my therapist asked if I sensed the energy in my childhood home as foreboding, I immediately said yes. I had always felt fearful apprehension and had a feeling that something bad was going to happen. I felt on guard for my life. 3 sets of bunk beds were laid out in the kids' room, and Mom and Dad had the front bedroom. I always chose the top bunk. I needed to be out of reach. My siblings teased me, wondering why I constantly slept in different spots in the bunk bed. The most teasing occurred when they discovered I'd slept curled up in the corner with my back up against the wall. Nightmares were usual occurrences for me. The one that repeated itself the most was something coming up from underneath the bed below and rising up to my bed. I could swear I would feel the covers moving as something skimmed over them. I usually couldn't breathe. Uttering any words was impossible. With such immense terror present many nights, wetting my bed was pretty normal. I was too scared to get out of bed and go to the bathroom. Mom never said a word to me about it. Although there was little space between me laying on the bed and the ceiling in the bedroom, there were many times I felt myself floating on the ceiling, looking down at my body. I learned that disassociation is a way in which some children survive by escaping mentally while the abuse is happening. The body and the mind seem to separate. My way was leaving my body and floating on the ceiling over the bed where the abuse was occurring. Sometimes I even watched what was happening, but it was as if it was happening to someone else. I never opened my eyes. I discovered that also suppressed memories of sexual assaults, and there was lots of denial that they actually ever even happened. The sexual assaults forced me to maintain what is called survival living. If anything threatened my sense of escape, suppression, or denial, I experienced a sort of inner struggle that I felt was threatening. It helped me better understand the secondary consequences of abuse, including me thinking someone would think I was gay if they knew. Complicated, messy, and terrifying. What I braved by eventually choosing a deep dive into the effects of enduring the tragedy of sexual assault was a willingness to proceed with my life while making sense of what happened. If my feelings were not explored, I risked sensing and believing the assaults were my fault, and that they happened because I was bad, or worse at the time, gay. It took a lot of courage, a huge ability to trust, and a desire to know I was worthy of healing to tackle the last cultural taboo, that of sexual abuse and exploitation of boys and men. The unlearning. As a boy, especially in elementary and junior high school, it was important for me to believe in life's philosophies. It may be the reason why I have this memory of having extraordinary teachers in my life. The school I attended, St. Peter's, was a Catholic school. The class I loved most was called Catechism. It was a summary of the principles of Christian religion in the form of questions and answers used for the instructions of Christians. The teacher of the class was such a gentleman. One spring day, as we sat on the grass outside for our class, the teacher was attempting to describe the concept of a friendly universe, the notion that the world was a friendly place, in essence, that God loves us. What he was saying directly contradicted something Mom said all the time, although in a less elegant way. Mom had taught us to believe that life was hard. It wasn't a friendly world, and someone was always out to get us. In essence, we were victims. It wasn't until that moment in class I had ever heard its opposite. I liked thinking, but more importantly feeling, that the world was a friendly place. And I loved hearing that God loved me. All of this landed in such a confusing way to my junior high school mind. What Mom had taught me seemed to be alive in my life. Constantly being stalked by my brother was hard. There were very few places I felt safe in the world. Add to that the experience, mostly at night, that somebody was out to get me. It was rare that I asked questions during class, but on this day, with this new learning, I felt compelled to ask a question. This question felt very scary to ask. "Tom, you have a question," my teacher asked. With a sense of terror pitted in my stomach and my mouth completely dry, I managed to ask this: "If God loves us, why does life feel so scary?" I felt the gentleness of this teacher, and suddenly, as he gazed into my eyes, I felt love. My teacher quietly asked, "What part of your life is scary?" Every eyeball from every classmate was seared onto me. Despite the daily experience of fear, no one had ever asked me what caused my fear. What I would hear when my family thought I was scared was something to the effect of, "Oh, come on, suck it up, you're way too sensitive." Although I sensed the simplicity of the question and that it came from a place of great care for me, I interpreted it as a call to betray my family. There were Dolan secrets that never received any airtime at home. There was no way they'd receive airtime in school. Yet before replying, I felt a deep sense of peace, an energy that had me feel like something and everything was going to be okay. This sensation filled me as I contemplated telling my truth. I felt this presence before in my life. Don't tell anybody about what we do together. We'll go to jail. Although I never opened my eyes when my perpetrator came to me, I was never able to shut out what I heard. This memory kept me from telling my truth to my teacher. Suddenly I had no voice, and the presence I felt was gone. As I leaned in to tell my lie with a faint voice, I said to the teacher, "When playing outside with my friends, life's not too scary." I laughed, as did my classmates. As the lie landed, the unlearning for me was letting go of the lesson taught by my mom, that life was hard. It wasn't a friendly world, and someone was always out to get us. I remember making a commitment to welcome and even call on the presence of that energy I felt that day. The story I told myself was that it was God who was that presence, and my learning was to trust that I was safe and protected. I have such fond memories of that teacher. His name is Paul, and of course, obviously I never called him that when I was in junior high school. But he was gentle, he was kind, he had a great laugh, he was always smiling. He was also little. He was the phys ed teacher for the school, and obviously a catechism teacher, or religion class, as we Catholics called it at that time. But he moved through life with a lightness. And I knew he had children, and I always thought, oh, I would love it if he was my dad. This particular day, and it was really unusual, springtime in Calgary, it can be a little nasty. This was a warm day, and we got to sit out in the grass, which was really quite lovely, and have this kind of circle conversation, led by him, of course. It was always a joy to do that. And I think the affirmation for me that I loved most about that time was that although I was taught to value things that were abnormal, right, that weren't normal, the abnormal thought that the world was an unfriendly place was something I'd breathe life into and think that in fact the world was an unfriendly place. That class setting, that class in particular, where I got to learn that it wasn't, that I felt this presence of God, that I was cared for, has never left me. In fact, it continues to inspire, because now when that presence is with me, and I'm blessed to have it with me a lot of times, and when it's not, I can call it to me, I now know what it feels like in my body. And of course, as it came to that grade 7 or grade 8 version of my body at that time, it felt so warm. I felt so loved. I felt so cared for. And in the midst of, or the tragicness of being in the Dolan household, it was rare. I think it was probably there for me, but the terror was probably greater than was my ability to feel, right, the love, if that makes sense at all. So this man filled me with love. This man filled me with respect. This man saw me, which was really interesting. And there would be many occasions that I would do all I could to be with him. He would be the sponsor of what we would know as extracurricular activity that would take place after school. So we'd go home, we'd come back. Mostly it was floor hockey. I was the goalie, but he would garner other teachers to come and play. So it was students against teachers, which was always cool. But anytime I had an opportunity to be out of the house, I took it. So to be out of the house, to be back at school, right at night, to be in school at nighttime was really strange for this little elementary school boy, but I loved it. It was an opportunity to get more of his energy, right, to listen to him. And he wasn't always waxing eloquently, philosophically, but there was an energy to how it is that he presented himself and how it is that he received other people. And I like to think that he formatively, for me, is the foundation of how it is that I feel I'm gentle in my life, that I can make room for lots of people, that I can respond in a way that I think people are seen by me. He would be, right, he'd be my foundation, he'd be my ground floor to that, which is a tremendous gift to continue to carry through my life. And most importantly, when it wasn't provided for me formatively, with mom and dad as my teachers, and sure there were other siblings that perhaps taught me things, but for the most part, because it wasn't their foundation, I would never see it. I would only see it, right, at school. And he wouldn't be the only teacher that would reflect that back to me. But for those 3 years that I was in junior high school, that he was my teacher, oh, I remember grade 9. And I still remember it today with such great sadness. And it was that he wouldn't be in my life anymore. That I wouldn't have these fixes of love from a teacher. That it would be gone. I missed it. And from grade 10, I would come back to junior high school many times to visit, really just to see him and mostly to feel him. So I'm profoundly grateful, right, for that gift from him of being able to learn that the world is a friendly place and to be able to recognize and begin to embrace that presence I felt, that I experienced as the universe, the divine, or God.